Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Maybe Next Year, the podcast that is, in fact, calling it now. My name is Frank,
Hi, Paul.
and Scott will be joining us in the interim here, but it is official. I think we're in maybe. Paul, we've usually saved it for when it's mathematically over, and I think that there is some extraneous odds that could happen, but I think it's one of those deals where if you really look at it, you'd need teams to beat each other that like it all actually can't happen or something.
Right.
So
We're in the territory where ties really are the only feasible way. And when you're expecting ties, that's pretty much the end of it. Yeah, I think the last odds I saw is the official odds are somewhere around 0.25%. That is not 1 in 4, that is 1 in 40. So when your odds drop to 1 in 40, you're expecting the Ravens to lose out. You're expecting a bunch of other teams to lose. If the Ravens literally win one of their last 4, it's over, and the Bills can't lose anymore. There's too much. So I think we're definitely making we're not overreacting to a loss. We're just making the safe, rational call here.
Having to win out with the Patriots on the schedule is pretty much a nail in the coffin. I mean, and then even if you did win out, you're not there. So maybe next year, Bills fans. Maybe next year. And of course, it comes at the hands of, I guess it's not fair to say it comes at the hands of the loss to the Dolphins 21-17, but we certainly couldn't prolong the fantasy anymore.
Right. If they won this week, we definitely wouldn't have called it this week because then like, okay, it's a 2-game deficit. The Ravens could, Ravens go 1 and 3, Bills go 3 and 1. It's a 3-way team tie or wins are against the AFC, whatever it happens to be. There's still some life there. So
9 and 7 technically on the table, 8 and 8 possible.
Yeah.
But here we are at 4 and 8, probably looking at a best 7 and 9, and that's just not going to get it done even in this terrible AFC. Really, and it'd be pretty impressive if they went 7 and 9 at this point. But
3 home games at least out of the last 4. So we've got that to look forward to.
And you've got Josh Allen to watch, so it's not your usual, excuse me, 3. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm already tired of this.
We are a good 3 minutes in. Normally the yawns come at like 90 seconds, so we've done a good job holding on at this point at 8:30 something p.m. on a Wednesday night.
Right. It's not your usual 3 December home games where everything is over and there's nothing to watch. There's an exciting player. I think it's fair to at least call him exciting player at quarterback. Josh Allen. They lose the game 21-17. We'll get into whether he missed the throw or sorry, I saw the word bitch because we're going to talk about Jerry Hughes. Not that he is, but anyway, we'll get to that. Josh Allen, 18 of 33, 231 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Of course, but the big missing part of that is 9 carries for 135 yards, including a long of 28, many of them for first downs on 2nd and 3rds and longs. And so I think if you, again, were just focused on the box score like last week, you'd miss a big part of the game. He certainly missed a few passes. I know on Twitter I talked about the one that he threw to Zay Jones that was behind him, and I think you or someone said that after they talked to the players, it was one of those things where he wasn't so much inaccurate as he thought Zay was going to stop, and Zay thought he was supposed to run, and so there's missing somebody you're trying to hit, and then there's miscommunicating, which I think is a little different.
Right. Though we did, to your point, he also did straight out miss a couple passes during the course of the game.
Right. He's a rookie, and one of his things is potential inaccuracy. But I'll start with my thoughts on the game because usually I make one of you go first. But since Scott's not here yet, I mean, I watched the second half, and which was definitely the more impressive half for the Bills. I've read about the end of the first half controversy where they were sort of running the clock out until they were forced to kind of try, which was a little disappointing. And I know that there was a missed extra point, but Josh Allen looked impressive to me on both with his legs and his arms. I don't particularly want him to run less. As far as I'm concerned right now, with the receivers on the team, he's trying to make the throws he can make. And I'm sure he's bailing a little early, but when you're averaging 15 yards a carry, it's kind of hard to argue with that. I thought I was really impressed with the final drive. Honestly, I thought that they starting at the 10 or whatever it was, certainly deep in the territory of Miami, they marched down the field right up to the end. And we'll talk about that last play in a minute. Disappointing day for the defense, who held the Dolphins to something like 200 total yards or a little less than that, but also 21 points on a lot of short fields. And special teams, again, not great. Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot of the high points there. I think, one of the things that jumps out about this game, I agree with you on Allen, and we'll save the super deep Allen discussion for when Scott gets on. But, you really like the aggression. Orlando and I were talking on Twitter, just after the game yesterday or the day before about how, it could be, you hope he ends up being a Brett Favre-like guy. Brett Favre had a lower completion percentage than Josh Allen in college, technically about equal if you adjust for era, since Favre was about 25 years ago.
Right.
And, Favre got over those issues. And Allen, there were two passes I thought were just so precise that they get overlooked. And you mentioned one of them, Frank, was, you didn't mention the play specifically, but on the first play of the final drive to Robert Foster, the Bills started that drive at the 10. He zooms a pass into Foster in really tight coverage. One guy on him and two safeties bearing down on him. Big 20-plus yard gain to start that drive at your 10. So you get the ball at your 10 with 2.5 minutes to go. By the time of the 2-minute warning, you've moved the ball legitimately 60 yards, thanks to a good pass to McCoy and then getting out of trouble and finding McKenzie. He was really dead on that. And also Zay Jones' second touchdown, that was another thing of beauty where he just threaded the needle and Zay just literally had to pretty much fall forward into the end zone. So it was great to see those precision passes. We also did see two I want to mention that he missed were both to Foster. And like we talked about in the Zay Jones one, James Lofton, credit to him who pointed that out, because I was initially cursing Allen out when I was watching it. And James Lofton, the color commentator, had noted, well, this could be one that could very well be on, Zay Jones too, that I have to talk about when they go to the sideline is, should Zay have settled in when he found the opening spot in the zone, or is he expected to keep going? But the ones that Allen was definitely inaccurate on, he had Foster up the left sideline the first quarter on a third down play, missed him. And then, of course, the bomb to Foster where the offensive line actually did its job. And Allen was able to stay in that pocket the whole time and find a man deep. And he overthrew Robert Foster, which is tough to do. That's kind of like overthrowing Marquise Goodwin or, overthrowing the Marquis de Sade. It's just not easy to overthrow Marquis de Sade references somehow. So it was, so those were disappointing passes, but very encouraging. He was, Pro Football Focus's highest rated quarterback this week. That is amazing considering where he was at the beginning of the year. There's definitely a ton of signs of progress. And again, I'm talking about Allen too much. So I just wanted to say I agree with you totally on the special teams. Really disappointing. Not so much the Hauschka missed field goal, 55 yards is not a gimme, but the muffed punt, a missed extra point. The punt that partially blocked, but they got a good bounce on, so it ended up being like a 30-something yard punt anyway. Those are failings that just can't really happen and cost the team dearly because they led to Dolphins points pretty much directly in all of those cases, except he missed extra point.
It wasn't like a miss. It wasn't like any botched snaps or anything, but do you think working with a different holder affected the kicks? Or
I definitely do, and I'm glad you asked that because on the extra, at least especially on the extra point, and I mentioned this on Twitter, I noticed. So the Bills had just scored a touchdown. You see Dar lining up to hold the ball for Hauschka. Hauschka all of a sudden, and he's already backed up away from. Then all of a sudden he approaches Dar, and I don't know if he said something or it looked like they had some weird communication. So Hauschka has to back up quickly then. Now you have a play clock winding down. He was not in rhythm, and I think that definitely has something to do with it. And I think McDermott, if I remember the press conference, I think today's press conference admitted as much, that there is an adjustment there that they'll work on. I mean, it's his third holder of the year, I think, maybe even fourth. I think he's just had Bojorquez and Schmidt before this. But even still, that's an issue. And then on the long one, there are a lot of people I was getting into it with on Twitter, Bills fans actually, about, they really should have tried that 59-yard field goal. On the 55-yard one that he missed in the fourth quarter, even if he'd gone through, it would have been good by about 2 yards. And I was kicking the same direction. You're talking about a grass field with some wind, and everyone at the end of the half said, you're better off trying the field goal. I think the Hail Mary was probably odds-wise the best option you had. So, but the special teams was definitely disappointment. Defense, I was up and down on this game. And,
a lot of dumb penalties, a lot of unfair penalties, a lot of Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't talk about the penalties right off the bat, because there were some really questionable calls on the Bills and no calls on the Dolphins. Obviously, Zay Jones, who is, I shouldn't say obviously, but on the play before the Clay play, Zay Jones had been interfered with on a catch that was called back on that final drive, which would have set the Bills up at the 2 if it hadn't been called back. There were multiple Josh Allen blows to the head where the guy grabbed him around the head, and another one where he got he just got smacked in the head on the way down when he was being sacked by, I believe, Quinn. Mm-hmm. So that was his point. And then just a ton of penalties on the defense. But the defense did earn some of their penalties, which was problematic. And also, even though they played generally well, as you know, Frank, I think they allowed, like you said, under 200 yards again, which has become a habit for them lately, which is great. When you want them to stop the other team from scoring touchdowns, I would say 3 of the key times are the first drive of the game, the last drive of the half, and in the fourth quarter after your team has taken the lead. Those are 3 times, and you definitely don't want to give up a touchdown. Those are the 3 times the Bills defense gave up touchdowns. And so that kind of disappointed me, especially because penalties in each scenario helped to keep Miami drives going. And it's funny, I found myself really upset about this game, and not just because of the Clay play, which we'll talk about in a second, but I realized I didn't have reason to be upset. It's like there was a big, it was great to see Allen perform well. They weren't really in the playoff hunt anyway, only technically were. But I'm like, man, I hate losing to the Dolphins now. And I kind of missed that feeling.
Yeah, I agree.
There was a point when I was indifferent losing to the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. It's not like, the freaking Dolphins, I hate losing to them.
Yeah, especially because the Dolphins didn't look great, and it was a winnable game, and you can count all the things that were, and I think some of it is, too, a bit of a wasted performance by Allen. You have something invested. This wasn't like a 10-9 game where nobody was doing anything. There was back and forth. There were touchdowns. And might as well talk about it now. I mean, the last play of the game goes down as an all-time play if he completes it. Certainly the discussion right after. It was funny because I felt like everybody on Twitter was mad at Charles Clay, and everybody on the radio was mad at Josh Allen, except that the people called in to basically defend Josh Allen. And I think that there was... it's hard because I think the initial statement, Allen needs to make a better throw there, is literally true in the direct sense. But when you rip it out of the context of, he had just ran about 45 yards to get himself open and had put the ball where only Charles Clay could catch it, and Charles Clay gets both hands on it. And, Charles Clay could also have come out of the end zone a bit more. It sounds critical of Allen more than it sounds like a shared blame or appreciation for the whole play. So I think a lot of people were upset, not so much that, I think I think it's a completely fair thing to say, man, what a heck of a play. Really, he had time to set his feet and throw a better throw there, and give Clay a better chance to catch it. But kudos to him for even making the play happen. I guess there was also some question about whether he really needed to abandon the pocket as quickly as he did. But again, he got himself to a place where he was open and was comfortable.
And I think he did, because he wasn't under as harsh a pressure as he'd been at points during the game. But the pocket was collapsing. You saw it very quickly when he turned to his left. All of a sudden, there were 2 Dolphins there. He had to turn back to his right and then his left again. So, and I agree. It's you mentioned almost, I hate like allotting blame, but it is, it does swing in both directions. Could Josh have set his feet and made a better throw? Absolutely. And what did he say at the end of the game? He said, I was gassed coming out of that play, but still, he's like, it didn't feel right coming out of my hand. I think he was saying, if he just taken a second, set his feet, and just gunned it, it made a better throw. We're probably not having this conversation now. At the same time, Charles Clay in his post game, we all agree with this, I'm sure, or we both agree with this, I'm sure. He's got to make that catch. And Charles Clay said, I have to make that catch. It was a wobbly pass. It was a bit underthrown, but you could tell the trajectory of the ball. He's got to sprint up there, and he easily had a chance. He had the ball. He had his arms underneath the ball in the end zone with no one around him. So it's not like he had pressure to worry about. That is one when it's your second highest player on the team, I believe. And I'm not sure on that, but I think that's about right. He's in the top 4 for sure.
Right.
You are expected to make that catch, and that's the type of play that gets you, off the roster next season when the team $4.5 million of your salary. So, I think there's a camp who wants to blame one side or the other. Listen, Allen, ideally makes a better throw, but Clay has to make that catch regardless. And that was really literally I pulled a Dable as I watched it live. Like you saw Dable in the background just collapse like a sniper and wiped him out. I did it on my couch, so I was a little safer than Brian Dable. I at least wanted to land somewhere cushiony when I collapsed in a heap, but it was it's like the air going out of a balloon, that feeling after that play.
Well, we don't have Scott here to talk about 3 stars, so why don't we move on to Hughes and this sort of controversy with a referee. I mean, Hughes is no stranger to mouthing off, and also, but this was after the game was over, and there was a confrontation, I guess, in the hallway on the way back in, and he was pointing and yelling at the referee. And my understanding is that Hughes says the referee called him a bitch or used the B word. I don't know how sensitive we want to be here, but and that Hughes was incredibly upset about that. And that referee has since been put on I think paid leave while they investigate.
Administrative leave. Yep.
Right. And so it's a question of whether anything else will be done about it, or whether, I don't want to say whether it happened. I have no idea whether it happened or not. And I don't know why Hughes would make something up. It's certainly possible that a mistake was made or something, but certainly obviously inappropriate. If you're a player and you say something like that, you're getting flagged and potentially removed from the game, depending on the level of severity and intimidation. But for a referee to do that to a player, I get that referees are. I get it falls back to like last week. I don't want to blame referees for losing games, but it's not a good look when your referees appear to be angry and cursing out and using invectives with a particular player. So, I mean, not much to say about it other than pretty shameful if that's how it went down, and hopefully the league does something about it.
Right. I thought one of the things that interested me most about today, I believe it was today or yesterday, the referees union statement came out on this, and they took some digs at Hughes writing the statement saying we fully expect the NFL's review to clear Roy Ellison, who's the official we're talking about. Video from last week's game shows he was verbally threatened by a player who has a well-documented history of abusive language and inappropriate actions towards our officials. So, talking about protecting Roy's rights during the process. So we don't know what happened. We know that Jerry Hughes does have a temper, but we also know that this referee has been suspended before for using inappropriate language with Washington's Trent Williams. That was just in 2015. That was 3 years ago. So he's obviously has some history of utilizing that word, and why, we devote some time talking about this when, we have the nonstop Josh Allen we could be talking about, some of the roster moves they made. This is going to be kind of a precedent-setting thing in the NFL as far as, do we have the referee explicitly on video clearly calling him that derogatory term, directing that term toward him? If not, what's the evidence that goes either way? Because you can't be yelling at an official, I'll catch you, you called me this, I'll catch you, but you also, as an official, can't be expected to get away with that. So
do you think it changes at all if Hughes was swearing at the referee and the referee just sort of gave him something back? Or I'm thinking about, not that this was the case last year in the Jaguars game, but certainly there was that issue where the player said Richie Incognito used a slur, and none of that was caught on tape, or at least that tape never came out. It's certainly more possible that a referee who is mic'd up, those guys are mic'd up because they end up, getting in the feeds of highlights and stuff. Like, I know that there's times when they show a referee explaining something to a coach and you can hear what they're saying. And so maybe there's a chance that is on tape, but.
Right. Though I would think, I would say even if Hughes had called him something, an official doesn't have right to shoot a name back. The official then does what they so often have done with Jerry in the past, throw the flag, give him unsportsmanlike conduct and say, you need to shut up. We're just going to keep flagging you. So, if you're in it's kind of,
there's room to just, and if it happens after the game, there's room to just find Jerry Hughes and say, like, if that happened, and file a complaint and he gets fined or something. Okay.
And then let's look at not to bring too much politics into this, but we have the Supreme hearings about the Supreme Court candidates. Can think what you want about what the accusations were. I think you should always have great concerns about the way someone responds to those. And if they're supposed to be an arbiter, someone who is literally a judge, they need to maintain a calm temperament and demeanor. That is why I am not a judge.
Yeah.
I do pretend I could be a judge. But if you're going to rule in the highest court in the land, you need to be expected to contain that or have that temperament. The same with Major League Baseball umpires, NFL officials.
Right.
If you're in that sort of position where you are a mediator, then you're going to have to, keep it together.
Right. And respecting also like the fact that, referees and people are human and they make mistakes and do things that they shouldn't do. That doesn't fully define their character necessarily, but we will keep an eye on it and we will see what comes of it. I also just don't want to feed the refs have it out for the Bills storyline, which I'm sure is taking place in a lot of forums right now, but certainly not a good look. Also,
do we want to guess Scott's 3 stars? By the way, I was thinking.
No, if he comes in, then we can just have him read his 3 stars, and then he'll have and then we'll do that. But or worse, if he for some reason he's really struggling, he can just do him next week, or maybe we'll guess at the end. If he hasn't here by the time we're doing this day in Bill's headlines, we will. Which I don't know what kind of segment that's going to be without him.
I could try to guess. I could try to have that Men in Black sort of laser shot at my face.
Right.
So I've forgotten my research and then try and answer the questions.
Here's some people who might not know the answer to things happening with the Bills now is Kelvin Benjamin and Andre Holmes. They were both cut in a surprise move after the game. And I think that, we aren't the only ones calling it maybe next year, because I think the team that was probably, they looked at it realistically and said, these guys aren't going to be here next year and there's not much else to keep them here. So let's get more young guys on the field. Obviously, Benjamin's a bigger disappointment. They traded for him in the middle of last year. Never really materialized as the big target threat that he was supposed to be. He's slow. He's a slow runner, which I think they knew going into it. But they thought he could be that kind of target, and he never was. And I think it's clear that, especially with Allen's style of play, I saw a headline or a quote. Someone said that, the lesson for wide receivers on the Bills is go long, because you'll always have a chance. Allen's going to be able to throw the ball. So if you can get away from coverage, you're going to have a chance. So he's done. Holmes also, an underperformer, though he was picked up by the Broncos. And as Paul's notes helpfully remind me, Mr. Bodine has gone to the IR, and Teron Johnson also having
shoulder surgery this morning, I heard. So he'll be done for the year. Nickelback, too. That's a key position nowadays.
I don't know much about cornerback Denzel Rice or defensive end Mike Love. I know about Mike Love, the Beach Boy.
Yeah, his music is phenomenal.
Right.
God only knows where we'd be without defensive end Mike Love.
Right. They didn't add any wide receivers, which makes me think that they're comfortable with the couple of speedy guys they have, and probably also just not trying at this point of the year. I mean,
isn't that something too? Because I remember 2 or 3 weeks ago on the podcast, we were talking about how the Bills going to keep going with these 7 wide receivers on the roster, and they are now down to 4 wide receivers on the roster. And what's even funnier about it, the 3 who are gone of that 7 were the most NFL accomplished, experienced wide receivers on the roster. So
that's very true.
Yeah, Pryor, Benjamin, Holmes, all gone, and they're going to roll with, Jones, Foster, Deontay Thompson, and dear Paul, who's the 4th receiver? I can't even think of it.
Nostradamus.
Yes, Nostradamus. Exactly.
And if you had told me on Sunday night that a pass catcher was going to be cut, I mean, it would have been Charles Clay, right? What are we keeping him around for, other than money owed? But anyway, we'll see. I mean, it'll be pretty impressive. I'm pretty doubtful that Charles Clay will be on the team next year anyway. He sort of has not had a good year at all, and
Isaiah McKenzie. Sorry.
Isaiah McKenzie. That's right. He had a nice day. Isaiah.
He did, 4 catches.
His name was called a few times. So we'll see what that is going forward. I mean, I'm fine with these moves. It was nice for Holmes, who got to catch on with another team.
Broncos will utilize him. I think in some way for the Bills, and this is certainly debatable. I think the Holmes loss is a bigger loss because he led the team in special team snaps, according to Mike Rodak at ESPN. 70.8% of the Bills' special teams plays he was on. Now they can also say, "Hey, special teams unit's been terrible with you. We can be terrible without you, and save your salary." But he also is under contract for next year, so they'd take a minor. I think it's like a $500,000 dead cap hit. Which, by the way, these two cuts make them over $60 million in dead money this year. So they hit a benchmark there.
Yikes.
But yeah, the Holmes loss could be, more felt on special teams, a little more surprising. But again, not a key player. And Benjamin, one thing, there's obviously the big narrative out there tends to be, low effort guy. There also is the alternative narrative, and I alluded to this a couple of weeks ago, and Matthew Fairburn of The Athletic had kind of presented this too. He might just not be very good anymore because when Matt Fairburn was talking to said the Bills' strength and conditioning staff loved Benjamin and had no issues with his effort. He's also one of the guys who was always in that weight room.
Right.
And they just said the belief is he's not the same player since he had that second knee injury last season when he tore his meniscus. And he could just, what we might see as lack of effort. Maybe he can't make the sharp cuts now that cause his roots to go deep and Allen to throw interceptions. And maybe he's having difficulty getting high on those contested balls, and that's why he's losing those battles. So
and it was that first knee injury that made him an attractive possibility at the time. I mean, certainly we can go back and forth on whether he was a good idea or not, and whether they were just a little too in love with their former Carolina roster. But I mean, Benjamin had done a few things certainly in the league before then, and all right, I mean, you lose a draft pick. You might have used that on a wide receiver anyway. So you used it on him and it didn't work out.
And as Michael Scott said, quoting Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I like the fact that Bean took the chance there. It didn't work out. Remember the context at the time, the Bills were 5-2, but didn't really have any threats in the passing game with Jordan Matthews disappointing. Sammy Watkins, of course, had been traded away. So they needed some help and they thought this guy's available for some mid-round pick, then let's take a stab at. I think it was a logical decision, and he was not the same player he once was, or that they thought he would be, and but you've gotta keep trying. They seem to have got. I mean, Isaiah McKenzie from Denver, they've gotten undrafted guy and Robert Foster, and these guys have definitely been, I would say, positive surprises. So keep taking chances. You never know. Some are going to be Corey Coleman types. But, others are going to be Isaiah McKenzie types.
Praise Jesus is Josh's comment on our Facebook.com//BBillsMNY, his feelings regarding Calvin Benjamin and Andre Holmes. So I think that's pretty clear. And Brian, longtime listener and commenter, Benjamin didn't deserve to be on the team, in my opinion. Didn't know Holmes still was, and Clay hasn't lived up to the big salary. Whether that's wholly due to consistently inconsistent quarterbacks is debatable. In his prime, Clay was the kind of player every struggling offense should have had a safety valve. So either his Miami years were a fluke, or he's been massively underused. I think it's certainly a bit of both, because I think there were definitely years in the Tyrod years where it was an open question about why they weren't trying to throw to Charles Clay. And I remember there were videos with Charles Clay wide open and nobody throwing to him. And, so.
The more I think back, and this is a minor digression, but it goes to Ryan's point too about Clay and your point too about being a combination. I think back to, I think it was the 2015 Bills, and maybe we were much more, we kind of look at Tyrod now as average. Maybe we were even overrating him, because I think you had a healthy Cordy Glenn all year. You had Wood and Incognito on your interior line. You had McCoy in the backfield. You had Watkins and Woods as your wide receivers, who were healthy most of that season. And you had Clay, and yet this offense, and then Rex Ryan came in and destroyed the defense too, in addition to not developing the offense. And think about that 9-7 2014 year with a great defense. Then they had these good weapons on offense, and they just couldn't take advantage. Again, minor digression, but I think that started bad for Charles in that first offensive scheme they had. And then as they got better schemes under Anthony Lynn a bit in 2016, and then I like Dable's scheme this year. We've seen him do some things. He had a great block on the Bills' first touchdown, but for what you've shelled out for this guy, he's just been, massive disappointment. You would expect you purposely bid really high on this guy to make sure Miami couldn't sign him away, just like New England did to you with Chris Hogan.
Right.
So, when you've made that sort of bold investment in someone, I really felt he should have become the greatest tight end in Bills history because, frankly, that is a low bar. You really just have to beat Pete Metzelaars. And, he was a good player, but certainly not a world beater. And, yeah, he just never could really develop into that. And maybe it's the injuries, too. We always forget about injuries, and Clay has dealt with a ton of them since he's been there. But, yeah, it's been a very sad tenure, and I'm now at the point where, yes, it's $4.5 million in dead cap money if you get rid of him next year. But I think it's absolutely something they should look into unless they just move him down on the depth chart, which I'm also fine with.
There you go. We didn't have any Twitter questions, but you can follow us at BBillsMNY, which that's fine. No Twitter questions, no problems.
Do we want to stall? Do you want to talk about Allen a little bit? I feel like we can always talk about Josh because I feel like we've under-talked about him, and we can stall this day in Bill's headlines a little bit longer.
I'm getting the feeling that Scott is going to be MIA this week because I think that he's probably deep in. I mean, I don't have any confirmation of that, but right. I'm getting the impression that he's pretty much going to have to duck out on this one. So it was funny because last week
he's going to kill a man right now. We're not sure, Frank and I.
Probably not. Well, last week he was sick, and we were joking about the ghost of Scott, and now he's ghosting on us. But we have confirmed that he's alive and I think feeling better. So that's good. Do we want to do this day's in Bill's history headlines, just you and me? We should take this opportunity to preview to our listeners that you will be on the Sunday program, Bills and Beers, after the game. You're defecting.
Yes.
Well,
for one weekend only.
And you're not going to miss next week with us, so that's good.
Yep.
But you will be doing a This Day in Bill's headlines with them.
Yep.
And so not the same ones because you really do specifically stick to the day.
I did. In fact, my research, which normally takes me, I've gotten in a groove now where it takes me maybe about a half hour to 30 to 40 minutes, depending on what I can find and the interesting things about the day.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to look up for 2 dates and go back and forth, it took me about an hour and 20 minutes, but I'm pretty well set for Sunday now. I'm excited about joining Lars and Cass and Suge and the team. And just, doing a little segment for them, and add some entertainment to what is probably not going to be a barn burner game against the Jets. So you never know. And I thank them. It's true. You never do know when you have two teams struggling at the bottom. Sometimes play can be sloppy, but sometimes that sloppiness can make a game really, really exciting.
Yeah, and it could be, and it could be a Bills win. So I mean, I think there's a good chance that a Bills win here. So we will see. Oh, look.
It's a year.
I stalled just long enough for this day in Bill's headlines. Yep. So when Scott speaks to us,
I'm here.
You are here. We're so happy to have you. We're almost done with the podcast, but we would love for your 3 stars of the game and any quick comments you have on the Bills Dolphins game.
There's no warm up, Scott. This is like when
you got to jump in, and then we're gonna go right to this day in Bills headlines. So
exactly,
it's good. You're here for the good stuff.
Well, the daughter's probably gonna wake up in 5 minutes anyway, so
perfect.
Just get it over quick.
Yeah.
Kiko Alonso, Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill are 3, 1, and 2.
Josh Allen gets the first star again.
Yes, he does.
Okay, so you did not hold the last play of the game against him.
I mean, I do, but I also don't think that there were any better choices. Tannehill had the worst 3 touchdown game in the history of NFL football.
He did.
Micah Hyde had a decent game on the Bills side. Robert Quinn had a decent game on the Dolphins side, but it was certainly not a game filled with exceptional performances.
You know what we didn't talk about, and we could talk about with Scott is unless Scott has more comments, please.
I do have more comments.
Please have more comments.
Let me continue my monologue.
Yes.
I think the only clever thing that I thought of to say on the podcast this week, and usually there's not even one, so I might as well say it. It's nice that they've cut all of the old guys and brought in all of these new guys, so I have a whole new set of Bills to be disappointed in.
Yes.
Because it got kind of tired. Exactly. It got kind of annoying being like, oh, well, there's, Leotis McKelvin or Terrence McGee, all screwing it up again, another blown call or who's like a Rex Ryan guy who hung around too long. Ramon Humber, another. What did he do today from Ramon Humber? It was nice to see Isaiah McKenzie, who everybody liked for 2 or 3 weeks, completely botch a punt that completely gave the Dolphins 7 easy points. Admittedly, there were other guys involved there, but he clearly didn't yell poison loud enough or whatever you were supposed to do. Right. Wyatt Teller, who had been kind of sneakily coming into play. Right. Apparently had put enough things on game film that the Dolphins were like, oh, this is how you beat him. He had 2 holding calls and a false start, if I'm not mistaken.
And then he let some Dolphins linemen go right by him on at least 2 occasions. So,
exactly. Yes. Yeah, he pushed the wrong guy the wrong way on the other thing. And then Jordan Phillips, another nice pickup, a little depth defensive lineman, seems to have come to play on a couple times this year, come up with a nice occasional guy, play. And he's a depth guy. He's not going to give you, a ton of standout plays, but he's playing sort of well today, but clearly he was playing a little too well, a little too jazzed up. And I am not a fan of that taunting call. I thought that was probably not a full taunting, but at the same time I think it was either Biscaglia or Sal was saying that Phillips had been on it the whole day. He had been literally on the Miami sideline the entire day. And therefore, that was probably the refs were listening to the entire time. They were waiting for him to take it one step further. And he did, and they nailed him on it. And it gave the Dolphins another first down, which led to a touchdown.
And then did you like his response? Then he starts clapping at the Miami crowd after they get called the penalty on. Then the next play. He and Milano get the guy in the backfield, and he does the same thing. Goes over to the Dolphin sideline and starts slow clapping at them. I'm like, are you trying to get kicked out? Because another enforcement, and you're gone.
It was really remarkable. And again, it's kind of the Bills always find these it was a nice kind of welcome to the Bills for Josh Allen. He do everything he can to put him on the back. And then there's all these guys who we thought were actually good, but they're actually probably just borderline players who just haven't quite, fleshed out to a certain extent. So yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on the Dolphins game.
Very good. Those were good thoughts.
Any thoughts on the roster moves either? We didn't talk much about Bodine because we don't think that's a big one. Teron Johnson we mentioned briefly, but I'm guessing Benjamin Holmes you might have.
Yeah, I mean not. I'm sure you guys were, really broken up about it, and we we went through our top 15 Kelvin Benjamin catches.
It's like you were listening to us.
All those games.
He had 15 catches.
We actually stopped the pod and put in Sarah McLaughlin's "I Will Remember You."
We did.
We're gonna roll a video package.
It's a somber day here in the DC area, and then the Kelvin Benjamin
have this on top of it. Yeah,
exactly. It's a tough way to get through things, and then you pile on top, a legend like Andre Holmes. How we're gonna get another guy to be a good gunner on special teams, I don't know.
Never happened.
Don't let Steve Tasker hear you say that though, or else he will come after.
He'll explode all over you. What we didn't talk about, and we're not going to talk about tonight, but we should talk about next week, and if not next week, the week after, because it's going to happen again, is the colossal disappointment that has been LaShawn McCoy's season. Because once again, he was basically absent from the game. But that unfortunately is going to, even if he has a good couple of games, that's going to be something we can talk about in context later. Instead, I would like to move. I think we should still go right to this day in Bills headlines and then get to the Jets and then get out of here, because Scott has a baby that's fussy tonight, and it's also cold, and I want to get a blanket.
All right. Well, that's as good reason as any to hurry through our segment. But no, we will do so. We're going to start off easy. We're going to get gradually tougher. We've got about 10 of these, I think, and then we'll close as usual with some questions on a game. All right. 2017, 1 year ago, December 5th. Rob Gronkowski suspended 1 game for cheap shot on blank.
Oh, it was wasn't. It was Trey White.
Trey White.
Frank it was.
Yes.
Because I remember really caring that he had hit him, and Trey White was like the only guy on the defense that I was like, "Don't break my new guy."
Yeah.
All right, this will be a little tougher one. 2015, blank doubtful. Jordan Mills likely to start at right tackle. Do you remember who pursued right tackle?
Say it again.
2015.
Yeah.
2015. Yeah.
Craig Urbick. In like a weird moment where he wasn't a swing
I'm going to be annoyed because I feel like you're right, and that's a Wisconsin guy, so I should know him more than anything.
No, I think Paul might have jumped in already if I was right. So
that's true. I've got to become less predictable. So it's not Craig Urbick. Trying to give some hints here. Maybe next time you see this guy, you can gain his good graces by passing him a joint.
Marijuana.
Maybe it would help him deal with his digestive issues.
Oh, Chantrell.
Chantrell
Henderson.
Nothing like some Crohn's disease references to get us to guess the guy.
That's right, the Crohn's disease. It really has been a magical trip, this team, hasn't it? All right.
2014. Blank named AFC Defensive Player of the Month. Now, I'll give you guys a hint here by giving you Doug Marone's quote about this. I'm trying to make sure that I know what it is so that way I can use it all the time, Coach Doug Marone said when asked what has spurred this player on the last 2 games, and he clearly has looked tremendous and motivated. If we can keep him going the way he is right now in these last 2 games, he's been dominant. When he plays like that, people are going to start saying, what are we going to do?
I have a guess, but I want Scott to guess.
Right. It's really a 1 in 2 chance. So we'll see which
Mario Williams.
All right, Scott's put out his guess. Was that yours, Frank?
I might be wrong. I was going to say Jairus Bird.
It is Mario Williams. Well done, Scott.
That was one of his days when he showed up. Yeah.
Right.
Those they were good days when he did show up.
Yeah.
The siren's going for this one, so we're gonna. This will be one. I think it's gettable.
The 3-alarm fire for this.
Points are worth triple.
Okay, I'm gonna scream over the sirens. Tight end Tony Milwaukee joins team. Running back blank waived.
Was it a Williams?
It was not a Williams.
All right.
Sorry, Jonathan and Shawn. 2013.
2013. Milwaukee
and Carlos is also a Williams.
Yeah. That's right. There's a lot of Williams running backs.
I'm going to answer my own question. How many Williams can I? Running back to Shard Choice.
Oh, Frank is on fire today. That's what the sirens are for.
His 4th guess, he nails it.
I was joking about the Williams ones. I asked if it was anyway, I'm sorry.
Feel the love.
I will sit out the next round.
If I can't get a joke off, or if I can't get a guess off in 4 chances, I really so.
Scott did get Mario Williams immediately, so we give.
It's true.
And he got Chantrell after the Crohn's comments. All right. 2009, Colts workout blank, who just completed the UFL season, could sign with the Colts, who are concerned about backup Jim Sorge's recovery from a shoulder injury suffered in practice.
I think I know who this is, too.
This is another one where I feel like a 1 in 2 chance is pretty solid. So I'll let you both guess.
I can only think of one Bills quarterback that was in the UFL. So it's got to be this one.
I would say, I don't know, Jeff Toole?
J.P. Lossman?
And J.P. Lossman, yep.
Yeah. He was on the Locomotive, I think was the name of his UFL team. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Good. Yeah, I will fact check that, but that sounds correct. And it sounded correct.
Frank's got the jersey, so.
I was excited for the UFL to not be terrible, but,
Oh, well. Can't always get what you want in life, sadly. All right. 2008, Bills prep for Dolphins. Blank named AFC Special Teams Player of the Month for Miami. Here's the hint. This Miami player later became a Bill.
It was the Las Vegas Locomotives, by the way, 2009. So,
well done.
2008?
Yep, 2008.
Bills
prep for Dolphins. Blank named AFC Special Teams Player of the Month for Miami.
I'll go with I feel like he was out by then, but I feel like this is as good a guess as any. I'll say Alida Mare.
Oh, Mare, it's a good guess.
That's a good guess.
He did have a cup of coffee with the Bills later, right?
Yeah, he did. I think
you got at least a tryout. I remember that. I don't know if he ever signed.
I have no guesses, so I will give up on this.
It's Dan Carpenter.
Dan Carpenter. Oh, here I am thinking of real players and not kickers.
Never think of real players. All right, this one also involves a former This involves someone who is not yet a Bill. Blank puts charge back in San Diego in victory over Bills. Says, with Blank bearing down on him most times, Lawson threw a pair of interceptions and 3 other passes that should have been intercepted.
That must be Sean Merriman.
Right?
Yep,
yeah.
Both got that one. No question for the 2005, other than noting this was where there was a headline that said Buffalo collapse leads to Miami victory, and this was the game that the Chris Chambers catch over Jabari Greer is painful. 2004, also no question, but I want to know Buffalo beat Miami on this day, 42-32, and when Pat Williams rumbled for an interception at the end, and they intercepted Fiedler 5 times. Good stuff. All right, back to the questions. 2003, opportunistic guard Blank, happy with new niche. He says, I was really excited for the opportunity. He said of his first starting assignment last week, everybody likes to be able to go out there and turn it loose. Now, I'll give some hints on this because this isn't necessarily going to be easy because he only played, I think, 2 years for the Bills. This guy is now a journalist and announcer. He was the lead NFL columnist for the Sporting News, and he's currently a commentator for NFL games on the radio and he's on TV for college games for NBC Sports Network.
Gus Johnson.
Nailed it. He's on Fox, but close.
He does Premier League too, or was doing Premier League. I don't know.
Boy, that's a good. It's a nice little career he put together.
Yeah, he's doing well. He's pretty.
Come on, Scott, get it.
It's not Ross Tucker, is it?
It is Ross Tucker. Yes. Look, Scott. 192,000 Twitter followers. Yep.
Yeah.
Good job.
I remember his first, and I remember an interesting piece about him, not to digress, but he actually kind of broke into the post-career journalism when he wrote a piece about how sad he was when the process of his career coming to an end and what's that like, and being told, oh well, we're giving you an injury settlement, but that means your career is ending. He talked about going into I forgot who the GM, Tom Donahoe's office, and Donahoe delivering the news and stuff. It was a really interesting piece. Got him into the media. Now he's the man. Mm-hmm. All right. 2001. This will be a tougher one, but possibly doable. Former Bills first-round pick Blank released by Colts. With Mike Vanderjagt hurt, the Colts signed veteran kicker Doug Bryan, and to make room for Bryan, the team released this veteran defensive back, signed in September after being waived by the Chicago Bears. So here's what you know. Former Bills first-round pick, then went to the Bears, played briefly for the Colts, and then cut, and his career did, in fact, end with being cut by the Colts.
Leotis McKelvin?
No, too early. This was 01.
Yeah.
01. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm way off.
Before Clemens and before
when Henry.
I will give you a hint.
I won't say anything.
I was going to say it's not Henry because we just did Henry Jones last week.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do him again. Not Jeff Burris. He would have been another good guess.
Jeff Burris would have been a good guess. Not Kelso.
I'm not. I got nothing.
You got Bupkis.
Yeah.
It was, I believe he was in Notre Dame. Maybe he wasn't Notre Dame grad. But his name was Thomas Smith. Do you remember Thomas Smith? Where'd he go? No, North Carolina, UNC. So, all right. That was a tougher one. No question on 2000 other than the headline was Bills playoff hopes slim to none following loss to Dolphins. That sounds familiar. 1999, the Bills beat the Cardinals 31-21. You can answer either of these questions. So the last career, this game featured the last career touchdown for a Cardinals player who had a brief role in Jerry Maguire and who many believe the character of Rod Tidwell was based on. And then you can either answer that or there was a Bills player who after this garbage time TD proceeded to return the onside kick all the way back for a touchdown. Bills player returned the onside kick after this touchdown, or this Cardinals player on whose a lot of people believe Rod Tidwell was based.
I mean, the only logical connection I can make from Rod Tillman, that was the name?
Tidwell. Rod Tidwell, yeah.
From Jerry Maguire, the great Cuba Gooding Jr., if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
To the Cardinals is Jake Plummer, the natural Those are basically the same person, I think. Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jake Plummer.
Plummer did throw the touchdown to this wide receiver. How did Jake do that day? 11 of 30 for 119. Jake did not do well. Under 4 yards a throw and a 30% completion percentage.
My guess was going to be Drew Bledsoe because I know he's in Jerry Maguire, but
yes, it was the wide receiver he was throwing to Rod Tidwell based on Rob Moore. Do you remember Rob Moore?
No.
Played for the Jets for years. Led the NFL with 1,500.
Maybe I do remember him as a Jet. Okay.
Yep, it was a Jet. He had a couple 1,000-yard seasons with them. Signed with Arizona, and still to this day, he had 1,584 yards in 1997. He set the NFL record that has not been broken yet of most targets in a season of 208.
Wow.
That indicates that
16 games. That's not messing around.
No, that is and I read a good article on that, and then I'll move on to the last question. But it was like that perfect combination of they were a bad team, so they were always behind in the games and had to throw a lot, and the only options to throw to were really him and Larry Centers. So he was getting all these passes. And in fact, I mentioned that one time after the 2-minute warning, he had 6 targets. That is tough to do. The Bills player returned the onside kick was Henry Jones. So that was your answer there.
There you go.
All right. Last question. We're going to make it a game question. And this is, you can guess any one of 3 things. And I think you have a good chance of guessing all of these. 2010 game. The Vikings have beaten the Bills 38-14 on this day. So on the Vikings' third play from scrimmage, quarterback Brett Favre threw an interception to Drayton Florence after being crushed by this Bills linebacker. As a result, Favre would miss the next game, ending his streak of games played at 297. So from 92 to 2010.
This one, Arthur Moats.
Arthur Moats. Scott didn't even hesitate.
Cross the Moats.
Yep.
Nailed it.
And then the bonus question that goes in this. So the QB who replaced him, who promptly threw a pick 6 to Florence, was on the Bills roster for all of 2012, and another guy on the Vikings roster who played that day led the Bills passing attack in a key victory last year en route to the playoffs. Can you name either of those or both of those two players?
What did the second quarterback do? I
have phrased this intentionally vaguely. I said he led the Bills passing attack in a key victory en route to the playoffs last year.
It would have been
yes.
Yes. Damn it. After Peterman. Who was he?
Yes, you're in the right game. You're in the
other
right game.
gadgety wide receiver, not Ross Harris, but Joe Webb.
Joe Webb.
Yes, damn it.
Joe Webb. I was worried there was going to be like Brad Smith. I thought you were going to go through every quarterback / receiver the Bills have had. You have Joe Webb.
And then the other guy was on the team in 2012.
All of 2012, didn't throw a single pass. But he was on the roster the whole year, active for all 16 games, and yet never stepped on the field.
No idea.
Then he went to Seattle.
Matt Flynn?
Matt Flynn's a good guess, but actually, do you remember Tavares Jackson?
Yeah, I do.
Sure.
I would have never guessed that he was. I do remember him as a Viking, but I did not think he was on the team for a whole year without playing.
Yep.
So, there you go.
And then he went to Seattle in 2013 and proceeded to do well as a backup. So I don't know why he wasn't good enough to bat. Who was 2012 for the Bills? I guess that would have been Fitzpatrick. So Fitz didn't sit much. So, yep, that was This Day in Bills headlines December 5th. So thank you, gentlemen, for participating. You can catch me again on Sunday with this segment on Bills and Beers.
Yes, that's right. And maybe if Paul is lucky, we'll have him back after such a betrayal. This Sunday, before Paul does that, I'm so sorry, Scott. Before Paul does that, he will watch a Bills Jets game, as most of us will. It's in Buffalo. Yes, no,
it is 3 of the last 4 are in Buffalo.
Right. So here we are in the home stretch. Bills Jets. The Bills won last time. No real reason to think they can't do it again. Scott, you were late to the game here. I'll let you go first.
I forget, by the way, someone asked me, what were the scores last week? Someone got it on the nose, right? Was it Frank or was it me?
I don't think I picked the Dolphins, though, so I don't think it could have been me.
We'll have to look it up. Yeah, because I think I.
Oh, okay.
Wait, I picked the I did pick the Dolphins.
Oh, maybe it was you, Paul.
Yeah.
Someone, because
you made me listen to last week's pod.
One of our listeners stopped me and asked, "Was it you that nailed the score?" And I'm like, "I know I was close, but it was that's an
Where
easy
did they
score.
stop you? Like on the street or like in the grocery store? Or
hey, you're Scott from maybe next year.
Undisclosed location in the greater Metro DC area. I won't go more.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, good. So we have local friends that are listening. Very good. Okay.
Anyway, so Jets. Yeah, I mean, the Jets are obviously not good, and we beat them once, and it seems like we're almost playing better now. We beat them with Matt Barkley at quarterback, right? I mean,
we did. That happened.
How could we blow this game, right?
Right.
Well, I don't think we will find out. Excuse me, Sunday, but I would say the Jets will be. I don't know. Are the Jets going to be motivated? That's kind of the thing. Like, do we know if Darnold's going to play?
He is. He's going to play, and they did.
Right.
One of the Jets players came out today and says, "Hey, we hate them. They hate us. What they did to us leaves a bad taste in our mouths." So I think they have a little bit of motivation going.
America, yeah.
Is the appropriate response. It wouldn't have been like, it's just another game. We're 3-9. I think nobody cares about this team and where we're going. So what's another loss?
They hate us.
Exactly.
He didn't even play in the last game. But anyway,
I will say this one is a little closer, but I like Allen at home. So I will say, let's put it at 20. Let's go random. Let's go 25, 19 Bills.
Okay. Paul?
I don't even know how you get that score.
All right. I'm going to have much the same logic as Scott. And by the way, as I was...
Well, hold on. No, 25. Three touchdowns with 2-point conversions is 24, and then an extra point. And then 19 extra points for the Jets.
Makes sense.
I feel like I need to pick a scoreagami. So I've gone to NFLscoreagami.com to find a score that has never happened before. In this one, I'm a little surprised. I think this is a score that could potentially happen. I will say the Bills win this 36-23. So there's going to be some 2-point conversions happening here, some odd scoring. But I think the Jets are going to play a lot better than we saw them. But I think the Bills are just, frankly, a better team, even with the loss of Teron Johnson and Russell Bodine and some of the other guys that they won't have from last week.
That's us. That's a close game. The Bills, for some reason, get into like a weird situation where they go for 2 at some point, and then they score 2 touchdowns later, and the Jets, kicked 2 field goals to stay close, but that was it. I can see that happen.
Yeah.
That's how it had to happen.
And let's face it, with the Bills offense, except for how it's been the last 2 games where it's been decent, the Jets offense, safety is not out of the realm of possibility. When the Bills had their scoreagami this year against the Colts, they needed their safety to do it.
They did. I'll just say I'm excited to see the 2 quarterbacks play. I mean, I'd mentioned earlier, I think that the benefit of the final 4 games this year, even though they're over, is Allen's a fun player, even if you don't love him yet or aren't going to love him. I mean, he's fun to watch. So it'll be fun to watch him, and it'll be fun to watch Sam Darnold over the last month and see what they come up with. So I'll pick the Bills to win this game too. I mean, I think I'll just pick something boring like 16-10 and won't be particularly impressed one way or the other. I'm sure Allen will rush for a bunch of things. You know what? That's the thing I'll be wondering. Like, are we finally at the point where Josh Allen, the league is ready to commit to stopping him running? But we'll find out, because then we can really find out some stuff about his arm. If you'd like to find out some stuff about us, you go to Buffalo Bills. You pipe Buffalo Bills maybe next year into your Google machine, and we'll pop up. Or we have a page,
which I did, by the way, when looking for our episode, and I stumbled across an archive page. And do you remember we once had an episode called "Scott Owns a Cisco CD"?
Yes, I do. That's a classic.
Yeah,
that's a huge. That's in when we were doing bonus content. And
Conrad Marcerius and his running dog.
That's like episode 3. That's like a very early episode.
Episode 4. You were almost right on there.
Yeah. I know. And you'll be happy to know that with my new computer, I was able to save the episodes from this year that we had done. I had managed to pull them off the old hard drive, which was not destroyed in my.
Which, yeah, you should. I feel like you should.
Nope.
If you want to log into the account and post what you did to your computer,
no,
feel free to do so.
No, you can go to Nationals 101 on Twitter. I post.
You can listen closely to last week's podcast and figure out.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago when I spilled wine on it, and then last week it was working. The keyboard wasn't working, and I said I can fix it, and boy oh boy, I couldn't fix it. So that's how Frank got a new laptop. But if you'd like to go to facebook.com/ or just /BBillsMNY, you could join our conversation there, or twitters.com/ /BBillsMNY. We're there too. BBillsMNY@gmail. You can search Buffalo Bills Podcast. We'll turn up. We're, by all accounts, at least our accounts, the second longest running Bills podcast, which is, I don't know. Are we like the Aaron Schobel of Bills podcast?
No, we're more like the Ryan Denny.
We're like the Ryan Denny. Yeah. All right.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah. We show up occasionally.
Ryan Denny made plenty of money. He's fine.
Yes.
We're like the Bobby April or Donnie Cross. Like no one really knows why we're still around. We're just keep our heads down, and we're the Tom Donahoe or no, who's the guy that does the contracts that everyone wants to fire once a year? Overdorf. Yeah. It was like, how does he still have a job? Yeah, we're the Overdorf of the Bills podcast scene. We just keep.
Well, they say half of life is showing up, and we've shown up for 6 years. So
yes,
almost 7. Jesus.
Here you go. Well, we're in season 7 now, so we're there. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. We're gonna skedaddle. Have a great night, everyone, and don't forget to listen for Paul on Bills and Beers on next week. Check them out, and we will talk to you later. Until then, I'm Frank.
I'm Paul.
Good night, everyone.